Hockey is for everyone, or at least it should be for everyone. A former Canuck brings that topic into the spotlight, and we're going to talk about it today. It's Begsy, it's Bowen, and you're listening to Locked On Canucks.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and thanks for hitting the play button on today's episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, Canucks reporter and part-time credentialed media member for Daily Hive Vancouver. And before we dive into the show today, we want to thank you for making Locked On Canucks your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, where the best way you can help us grow is to listen every day and subscribe. And of course, I'm joined by the legendary Kyle Bowen. And Kyle, how you doing today?
Legendary. Hey, shout out to the homie Spencer. That's his thing. Legendary. Shout out to a Vancouver legend. Again, his name's Spencer. Yeah, good guy. That's his thing. And I'm feeling good. I know you didn't ask. I'm feeling good. Friday. Been doing the podcast for like 8 or 9 days now. Loving the people, loving the fans. Hey, comment corner. We're going to move that to the end of the show because we're going to save the best for last. All right? For real. We're going to save the best for last. We're going to get to your comments right at the end of the show. Begsy Bowen, Locked On Canucks. And let's talk about the people and a former Canuck player crossing the line, saying too much, and just making it about him when there wasn't even an initiative to force something down or force an agenda down somebody's throat. It was just a fan of hockey being vulnerable and trying to explain why wearing a Pride jersey is important to him. And I don't know why Tom Sestito, maybe he didn't read the tweet properly. Maybe he's just an angry fellow, but he just took it too far. And it's hockey, man.
Maybe he can't read properly. Maybe that's the problem.
It happens, man.
Yeah, it's again, it's an unfortunate topic, but I think it's an important one for us to talk about, and especially because there's a Canucks tie-in today in the sense that it was former Canuck Tom Sestito who made those comments. But let's get into it quick. So basically, Canucks fan Cody Sweet had a thread on Twitter, and it was related to the fact that the Minnesota Wild also didn't wear Pride jerseys during Pride Night a few games ago. And I know, Kyle, you want to touch on a point on that later in terms of an article written in The Athletic. But really, I'm going to read a couple sentences from Cody Sweet's thread. And it was, when a fan puts on a hockey jersey, they don't become a hockey player. They are saying they are part of a community, something larger than themselves. They aren't on the roster, but they are a part of the team. When a player puts on a specialty jersey, they don't become a soldier, cancer survivor, black, or queer. They're saying they celebrate the diverse groups of the community that make it complete, make it whole. And he goes on, and it was an articulate thread. And again, he was being vulnerable. He was talking about, again, not that you have to support LGBTQ, but the fact that it means a lot to that community when you put on that jersey, when you wear the Pride jersey, when you have the tape on your stick. Because again, the slogan of this game is hockey is for everyone. And unfortunately, that's not the case. It should be for everyone, but it's not the case. So in terms of the last tweet I read, so Tom Sestito replied to it, former Canuck enforcer Tom Sestito. And he replied, "This whole thing has gone way too far." And again, he said two with the T-O, should have been T-O-O again. Guy probably can't read, spell very well.
Hey, I would make that mistake too, okay? Come on. Stick to the point, Trevor.
He said, "This whole thing has gone way too far. This gender BS where you have to know who identifies as what and know pronouns is effing ridiculous. No one gives a hoot what you want to identify as or who you want to be with. Just don't make everyone else play your fantasy." And it was just something that missed the mark completely. Because again, Cody was being very vulnerable, very forthcoming. He wasn't saying you have to support LGBTQ. He's just talking about how when it does happen, it means a lot to that community. And to have a public figure like Sestito, and I know he's been out of the league for a few years, come and say that, have that reply. His reply didn't even really make sense. Cody wasn't talking about pronouns. Cody wasn't talking about forcing people to support queers. He was just being vulnerable and forthcoming. I almost couldn't believe it. And I think, Tom Sestito probably was the biggest story on Canucks Twitter yesterday, which is why I think it's important for us to talk about it today. But, what were your initial thoughts when you saw, well, tell me how did you see the thread? Did you see Tom Sestito trending on Twitter? Maybe tell me how you found out about it and what your thoughts were.
Yeah, I did see it happen. I didn't pay like a lot of attention to it just because my evening was really, really busy. But yeah, like I think you just nailed it. I mean, the dude, what's his name again? Cody, right?
Yeah, Cody Sweet.
Cody Sweet. He was just being vulnerable and trying to explain himself. And there's been a lot of talk around the NHL and the Pride jerseys and Provorov and then the Minnesota Wild and confusion and why wouldn't they, blah, blah, blah. And it's, becoming sensitive. And you have Cody here just kind of explaining himself in, again, not even, here's my agenda, you should follow it type of way. He's just really speaking from his perspective. And I think Tom Sestito just didn't read it properly or was just tired of that type of message. And you can kind of tell because the way he reacted, and it was just uncalled for because the game needs to grow, man. The game needs to grow. We got to listen, we got to listen to everyone. These groups that are not represented well in the league, we just got to listen. We got to listen and not be so against change and another voice. If there's any league in North America, and again, there's no league in North America that is perfect in the humane type of thing, but the NHL is probably the league that needs it the most. We need to be more diverse.
Yeah.
And we don't have to force it. It can happen gradually as it should. Just happen. Let it happen naturally and gradually. And it starts with acceptance and it starts with listening. Just listening to those that aren't represented well. And again, it's been a volatile time, a sensitive time based on the jerseys and the Pride jerseys. And again, the Wild, the Flyers, Provorov. There's a story here. And now we had Sestito, former Canuck, chiming in and being aggressive about it when it was kind of uncalled for. It's one of those things. Cody and Tom need to go out for a beer. And I think, I don't know Tom Sestito personally, obviously. I know there's stories around him, and I've seen other tweets about him, blah, blah. Conversate, talk about it, and hopefully they can move forward and the game can grow. It's not a tough topic. It's just one of those topics that eventually I want to see not be so much of an issue. But I think this is just part of the growing pains because it is not new. It's just change. Change is like hard. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And, you brought up a few good points there, but one that I wanted to bring up was you mentioned that maybe Sestito didn't read it properly. I'm not giving him the benefit of the doubt on that. And I know I made jokes about him not being able to read, but in all seriousness, this guy spent most of yesterday, attacking fans on Twitter, or maybe not fans, but people on Twitter who were basically calling him out. So if you really genuinely believed you made a mistake and you read it wrong, you wouldn't have spent your entire day chirping people who are chirping you, This guy just got into a pissing match with the entirety of Canucks Twitter yesterday.
Didn't know that.
So I'm not giving him the benefit of the doubt for not reading it properly. And again, I don't want to come on here and make this a Tom Sestito bashing session. I think the point of it is that, hockey, it's in a tough spot right now. I think there's been some moves made forward recently in terms of that hockey is for everyone slogan. And, there's been some small steps to try to make it more diverse, the Hockey Diversity Alliance coming into the light too. But, we've had some backward steps recently with, the Rangers. I believe they were another team who didn't wear the jerseys on Pride Night. The Flyers with Provorov, the Minnesota Wild. It's can you imagine if a player opted out of, military night, woman empowerment night, Diwali night? If teams and players opted out of that, there would be an absolute firestorm. And not to say there's not a firestorm around this Pride stuff, but it just puts into perspective. Like Cody's saying, this is just another night to show that hockey is a community, and that for one night, a team supporting that community. So, yeah, again, it's when Tom Sestito says don't force your agenda on people. I don't think that's what the queer community wants, but they shouldn't have to force it on people at the end of the day.
Yeah, they shouldn't have to force it on people, but they have to be heard, and we have to listen with both our ears and be calm about it. And I'm saying, like, what do you mean? Like, bro, I accept it, bro. The hockey, for me, it's for everyone. I view everyone the same, to be honest. Like, for real, as long as you're not like killing people or kidnapping kids or doing the worst of the worst, that vile stuff, that's when I'll judge you. But for anything else, dude, you can love whoever you want. You know what I'm saying? Who cares? Who cares? Are you a nice person? Yeah? Great. Let's be friends. Let's go watch some hockey. It shouldn't be that deep. Now, we have to touch on this because now you mentioned the Rangers too, and I'm thinking, like the Rangers, Panarin, Minnesota, Kaprizov. Provorov, when he didn't do it, he came out and said, he said the whole Bible thing, and that doesn't align up with him and all that stuff. I don't think Panarin or the Rangers or Kaprizov and the Wild have said anything, but I did notice that there's an article that came out today on The Athletic, and I don't think there should be a paywall on this article, by the way. I think it should just be open, especially to the NHL fan base. But I heard or saw people replying back to the article, and I think there was a point made in the article about how if the Wild or if the Rangers wore the jerseys, maybe Panarin's family at home or Kaprizov's family at home or any Russian players' families at home would get scrutinized because of how Russia views people part of the LGBTQ plus community. And it's something to think about. Again, like you have to, we have to listen, you have to listen to the people who want to be heard. And can't just assume that all the Russian players are against it, because I doubt that as well. For real, I doubt that. Maybe it is, or it probably is. Like if they're mentioning that, yo, I'm concerned about my family at home if I rock this jersey, you gotta listen. That's their family, So I don't know how it is out there in Russia. You know what I'm saying? And yo, the Canucks. I think in a couple days, maybe a week or something. I think it's their Pride Night, and we got a lot of Russians on our team. And it's different out there. It's a different world out there, and they do got family members out there. And I'm curious to see how the Canucks deal with that and their players. And yeah, it's one of those things. So it's how do I say this, man? It's unfortunate. Let's all unite as one, whether Russia has different views and this place has different views, blah, blah. I like to say, and I know some people might think this is far from the truth, but we're all one, we're all one. We're all one. And I would love for all of us globally to be accepting of anyone that is a nice person. That's simple. You know what I'm saying? It's that simple.
Shouldn't be that complicated.
It shouldn't be that complicated. You're a nice person. You're a good person. Do what you want to do. Love who you want to love. Go to bed with whomever you want to go to bed with. For real. It's all good. It's all good. It literally doesn't matter. Are you a good person? Yeah, cool. Let's go watch some hockey. It shouldn't be like that, but that's just the world. But I'm trying to change that for real, man.
At the very least, if you're a good person and you're listening to Locked On Canucks, we love you and accept you. Okay, no judgment from us over here. And Kyle and I appreciate those of you who kind of stuck with us through this segment. I know it's not traditional hockey talk, but I know both Kyle and I felt that it was an important thing to bring up, especially with, again, a former Canuck who's the one who's basically inciting the fan base with some questionable points of view. So in our next segment, I do want to touch on one good thing because, that was a bit of a heavier conversation, an important one, but a heavier one. So we're going to go to our one good thing segment next. But before that, we need to tell you that the midway point of the NBA season is here. And now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores to threes drained. Kyle, I wanted to ask you, any idea how your Golden State Warriors are doing lately, or are you just kind of Are
No,
you
they
tuning
lost
out of the
yesterday.
NBA right now?
They
They
lost
lost
yesterday
yesterday.
to the Grizzlies. I'm loving the drama. I'm loving the drama. I wish the NHL had more drama like that. You know, there's a lot of players bashing other players in the NBA, especially in the Western Conference, right? Doncic, Devin Booker, the Phoenix Suns, Dallas Mavericks, and yesterday we had the Grizzlies, the Warriors, Draymond Green, and I think Dylan Brooks, and it's fun. I wish the NHL had that. I wish the NHL had that for real.
Yeah, maybe if the NHL had a little bit more healthy beef, then they'd be a bigger fan base. But that's why the NBA is more popular at the moment. So if you are watching NBA, go use FanDuel because if you're on FanDuel, they'll let you combine your bets for a chance to win at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. So don't miss your chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to fanduel.com/locked on. That's fanduel.com/locked on to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
One love, one love, one love to the world. One love to the world. Remember, be nice. Be nice. Let's listen to
One
each
love to the
other.
world. One love
Yeah.
to the world, and one love to Brandon Sutter. And he's the one good thing I wanted to bring up in
Mm,
segment 2 because it's been a rough couple of years for Brandon Sutter. I think most
it
Canuck
has.
fans realize that, but he came back up into the spotlight yesterday because he did an interview on Donnie and Dolly talking about his recovery through long haul COVID. Now, it's been almost 2 years to the date that the Canucks in April of 2021, where they basically all contracted COVID. It was the worst COVID outbreak in North American sports. Now, Brandon Sutter was
Yeah.
included in that. He came back and finished the season, but by the time he got to training camp for the 2021-22 campaign, he just wasn't feeling right. And he talked about a lot of immune issues. A lot of dysregulation in his immune system is what he called it yesterday in the interview. And that he said that his body was almost in an inflammatory state all the time. So he's really been dealing with the symptoms of long haul COVID for the better part of 2 years. So I guess the good news that come out of it yesterday is that he's back to working out again, and he's trying to attempt to come back this year, or sorry, next season. Now he said this will be his last kick at the can, his last chance to try land an NHL job. But again, just kudos to Brandon Sutter. I know he took a lot of heat in this contract or a lot of heat in this market for the contract and for the flawed deal that First Benning acquired him in a flawed deal and signed him before you played a game for the Canucks. So took a lot of heat for that, but at the end of the day, down to earth guy, and wish nothing for the best of him. I hope he is able to make a comeback, man.
Yeah, man. And let's be honest, let's be real. Kyle Bowen speaking to the people, speaking to the city, speaking to the Canuck fans all around the world. If you've been following me for years and I've heard my voice on the previous shows that we hosted, I didn't really respect Brandon Sutter a lot. Nice dude, of course. I respect him for that, but what he did on the ice, didn't really get it. Didn't really get it. Started off wrong with the Canucks, traded a lot to get him, and then right away you just reward him with one of the bigger contracts on the team. And it was just weird, it was off to the rough start. That being said, I feel for him, man. Of course I feel for him because 3 years ago, it's 2023, 3 years ago around this time, this is when it really hit us. And COVID-19, obviously way bigger than the world of sports, but for whatever reason, it really hit North America around this time. Because yesterday was the 3-year anniversary where Gobert, the Utah Jazz, and this dude was messing around with all the microphones and coughing into the microphone, blah, 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 right? And the day after, the NBA got pretty much shut down because players started getting COVID. Then the NHL shut down because COVID, and then North America it happened. COVID got here, and the sports brought it to our society over here on the West. And just fast forward a couple years later, we're kind of moving on with life and not really thinking too much of it. And some of us are even questioning, what COVID was, right? What COVID was. And then you hear things about athletes. We're talking about primetime athletes, top tier athletes, have the best conditioning, eating the best meals. And Brandon Sutter, he was always in one of the players in the best shape. Like, let's be real, let's be honest. He had that with him. Even another guy like Jonathan Toews, and both these guys are guys really, really struggling with the aftermath of COVID-19. And it's unfortunate. That's not fair. That's not fair. That's not fair at all. Now, I did hear one thing about Brandon Sutter. He mentioned how he's been able to become a better father because of it, because he's staying at home, and I'm happy for him because that's what life's all about. And I hope that yeah, I hope that he's not having any problems doing the most for his family and playing with his children and all that stuff, because that would really hurt. As far as his hockey career goes, again, if he was making $1.5 million a year, if he was making 2.3, if he was making 3.1, I think a lot of us would view Brandon Sutter as a different type of player because his work ethic was strong. He was a good skater. Sometimes he was good on the power play, especially when he started here with the Canucks, getting some time with Henrik and Daniel. I remember that. And he was a good dude. So he'd be like a decent player, a good player, a good dude, good with the media. And I think a lot of us would appreciate him more. It's one of those guys, man. I kind of forgot about Brandon Sutter, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, he's been out of the spotlight for a while. He's been out of the league for 2 years. So, again, I think he's probably realistic that, again, when he said this is his last chance to come back, he's been out of the league for 2 years. That's really tough to come back to the best hockey league in the world after being gone for 2 years and for being gone for 2 years with health issues. But I think every player wants to retire on their own terms. And I think by Brandon Sutter trying to give it a shot for training camps of 2023, he'll be doing that for himself. So shout out to him. Wish him all the best. And yeah, see where it goes. We got one segment left here on Locked On Canucks. We're going to get into comment corner. And if we have some time, maybe I'll tell you why I'm cheering for the Ottawa Senators against the Vancouver Canucks this weekend. That's on the other side here on Locked On Canucks. We're back on Locked On Canucks. I'm Trevor Beggs. He is Kyle Bowen. Now, Kyle, is there a couple comments you wanted to get in from the interweb before I tell you why I am a big Ottawa Senators fan now?
You got like 6 or 7 different teams, yeah. If you're new to the show, Trevor's a weird fan because he cheers for a lot of teams. So when you hear the saying, we're all Canucks, Trevor's not on that wagon at all, for real. He's just here. I don't even know why he's here for real. I got a couple comments. Obviously, I got a couple comments, right? We saved the best for last, and we're not here without the people watching this for real. Let's see what we got right here. Yesterday's episode, which you should check out, about Kuzmenko and possibly trading up to get Connor Bedard in this fantasy world of ours, had this guy commenting this, that type of trade. Again, a trade involving moving up in the draft for Connor Bedard, in like an Eric Lindros-esque type of trade is impossible to happen. And obviously we know it. We know that it's impossible. It's impossible. It's never going to happen. And we were just kind of talking about how big the haul would have to be based on what the Flyers got for Lindros in the trade involving the Nordiques and Forsberg and all that jazz and all those picks. Yeah, come on, man. We obviously know it's impossible. We're just playing around, man. But it's fun. It's fun, dude. It's fun to think how that would work.
Maybe I'll ask you this quickly, Kyle. Would you trade Pettersson for Bedard in a package? You're gonna say, of course. Just that was your gut, man. That was your gut. Go with your gut.
Well, okay. Well, Pettersson is not cost controlled for that long. Who knows what's gonna happen next year? You're talking about Pettersson. You're talking about 2 firsts. You're probably gonna have to throw in Niels Höglander in there.
I think 3 firsts. Let's say it's Pettersson, 2 firsts, and then probably whatever prospect they draft in the top 10 this year.
Would I do that trade for Connor Bedard to bring the kid back home? The kid who's never eaten fast food in his life? Connor Bedard, this dude, I do it. I would do it. I think I would be, come on. And I would do it. West Coast, Best Coast, that would be a story. That would be a trade. Yo, would you trade Quinn Hughes and 3 first-round picks for him?
No, I wouldn't. I just don't. Again, you can't win without an elite blue liner in today's age for the most part.
You got Hironi.
I think Quinn Hughes is, again, we literally talked about this week about how he's undervalued and underappreciated. Now, again, Connor Bedard could be generational, but if the Canucks just trade everything away to get him, and they don't have many futures, and they're going to trade away more futures to get him, you're just going to be like the Edmonton Oilers. You're going to have 1 or 2 good players, and you're just going to spin your wheels and be mediocre for a decade or more. So no, I don't think the Canucks should be trading 3 first-round picks and either Pettersson or Hughes in a trade for Bedard.
The dude's never eaten fast food, okay? His mom came out and said it. This dude has not eaten fast food. And if you see this guy's interviews, when he got interviewed after the World Junior Hockey Championship and they won the gold medal, I think a reporter went up to Connor Bedard on the ice and, I think they asked him a question regarding his on-ice play. And the first thing he said is, don't talk about me. Don't talk about me. We just won this tournament. I'm not talking about me. And then a couple days ago, he was being interviewed on TNT, and this dude said he's not focused on going first overall because he feels like if he slips up and doesn't play strong, he's not going to go first overall. Like this guy's on another level, bro. Ultimate humble character, West Coast to best coast. Would I do all that to bring the kid home? Can we just win the lottery? That would make it way more easier for real. Can we just win the lottery? Can we just win the lottery?
Maybe, yeah. Well, winning the lottery would be nice, but maybe let's leave it up to the commenters and keep this conversation going. Would you trade 3 first-round picks, including this year's top 10 pick, presumably, and one of Pettersson or Hughes for Bedard? That's the question to the commenters, and let us know how you feel about that potential trade scenario. Kyle, before we wrap up the show, I do want to tell you about why I'm cheering for the Ottawa Senators against the Vancouver Canucks this weekend. And I know you're going to call me out and say, like, oh, you cheer for all these teams, blah, blah, blah. But come on, like, most Canucks Nation is cheering for losses right now. I think, especially in that game on Wednesday against the Ducks, I don't think anyone was really all that happy to see the Vancouver Canucks beat the Anaheim Ducks, especially when it got to overtime. True. People want losses right now. And what are the Canucks doing? They're winning. They're climbing the standings. They have the best record of anyone in the bottom 10 over the past 10 games. Now, against Ottawa on Saturday, I feel like there's similarities between the Ottawa Senators and the Vancouver Canucks. I think for years, I know you and I said this to each other, that, Pierre Dorian and Jim Benning were the worst 2 general managers in hockey. And, aside from Ottawa's kind of miracle run to the conference finals in 2016-17, they've been a terrible franchise. So I know Senators fans have suffered, just like I know Canucks fans have suffered. And, they're finally on the precipice of making the playoffs and giving their fan base some hope for the first time in years. And as a Canucks fan, and, we watched this team spin their wheels, I want hope. I want reasons to cheer for this team. And for the other Canadian market to go through something similar, I just want some success for Ottawa. I want to see them make the playoffs, okay? Wow. I was especially cheering for them before we traded the Islanders pick, because that was, one of the teams that I was hoping to slid out of it. But now that pick's gone, that's a moot point. But I will say this: go Sens, go on the weekend. The Canucks are winning way too many games right now. Let's add another loss to the total, increase those lottery odds, and hopefully the Ottawa Senators can get that playoff berth. Go Sens, go.
We just talked about the whole Bedard trade scenario. Come on, we don't have to think like that if we actually do lose games here. It's just the way the team's going and the way Pettersson's going and Hughes is going and Miller's going and Demko's going. They could.
It's not going to happen, but I'm still holding out hope. Okay, I'm still holding out hope. Again, the Canucks have never won a lottery. One of these days, it's going to happen, right, Kyle? Right?
Pierre Dorian is maybe the comeback NHL executive of the century for real. He's definitely up there. For real. Thanks for that conversation. I know we went all over the place. That just flew by, bro. That just flew by. I know we're on that serious issue off the top. That's because, bro, we just want the game to grow, man. We just want the game to grow.
Do you even have a watch?
Of course I got to watch. What are you talking about?
Okay, all right. Sorry.
Of course I got to watch.
I'm recording off of a small computer. I wasn't sure if you were just.
Of course I got to watch, man. Come on, man. Of course you got to watch. I know. We got to go. We got to keep this thing short. Again, I just want to tell the people, listen, be nice to people, and get over yourself, yo. If you're judging somebody or scrutinizing somebody based on who they love, you need help, yo. You need help, for real. For real. Just judge a person based on how they treat other people. That's really the only thing, for real. And the only people that we should be hating on and ignoring and not wanting to listen to, again, are murderers and evil people. Nice people who are choosing who they want to love, who happen to be the same gender as them. Like, come on, don't be hating on them. There's nothing there. There's nothing to hate on. It's all love. It's all love. We have to lead with love in this thing called the world.
Yeah, it was well said, Kyle. But I also think I don't think you listening right now needs to hear this, because we know that you're an awesome person, because you tuned into this episode of Locked On Canucks. And we thank you for making Locked On Canucks your first listen every day. Now make your second listen game to game, Locked On NHL. Every moment, every performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across Locked On NHL with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NHL, available on Audacity, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Trevor Beggs. He's Kyle Ballin. We hope you both have a great weekend. And thanks for listening to this episode of Locked On Canucks. One love.
Your Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.